Today's interview is with John Stavig, the Managing Director of the Gary S. Holmes Center for Entrepreneurship at the Carlson School of Management, University of Minnesota, Twin Cities. Hello, John. John, beyond the immediate damage control and the shock to the system that COVID brought upon all of us, how have you used COVID as an opportunity to take advantage of the way people work and the way people learn?
Yeah, I think it gave us an opportunity to reassess pretty much everything we do, and it was a welcome break, and I think something probably long overdue for higher ed and a lot of the programs that we have or the routines that we settle into. So, I think it forced us to find better ways to engage and take advantage of technology to get more people remotely engaged with classes and competitions and programs. I think forced us to be more efficient in terms of finding ways to deliver content and make it easier and more flexible for students. And I think that certainly some of the groups like grad students expect that a lot. And I think it caused, I know from my perspective, us to find better tools that enabled students to work together and be not only more efficient, but I think there's some ways to collaborate as well. And then as we go forward, I think particularly for a large urban university that sees value in bringing students together for collaboration and discussion, it really causes you to look at that precious time when students are together in a classroom and how do you maximize that. So I think it's been a great learning process for higher ed to go through.
How are students learning differently? And how do you think that the future of learning is going to change in the immediate future? Let's say starting this fall 2021, the 2021-22 academic year, and then project 2 to 3 years out. So how are students learning differently?
I mean, I was incredibly impressed with how students really rose to the challenge, and we're able to work together. And most of the classes I'm involved in, it's intensive teamwork and group activity that oftentimes remote teams. And while they didn't embrace the 100% virtual, particularly for undergrads, I think there is an expectation now that they can be a lot more efficient in terms of how they receive the content and how certain portions of the learning take place. And while there's a strong desire, I think, on the student side and the educator side to bring folks together in collaboration, I think there's a large portion of it that's going to remain that's a lot more efficient, and students are going to continue to demand that. And at the undergrad level, but particularly if you look at with MBA students or particularly part-time students that are continuing to work and juggling family life, they have been demanding more flexibility before, and now it's almost a bare minimum that they're gonna expect.
What does all of this mean for asynchronous learning and online learning with touch points? I'm hearing those terms a lot these days.
Yeah, I mean, as I was saying earlier, I think the students really want it on their own terms, and there's no reason why it shouldn't be, other than when they're collaborating, and even a portion of that in the small group setting can be done in ways that are more flexible as well. So I think the asynchronous side of things is here to stay. And I think the programs, I think the value we can provide to the students is so much higher, and they're not going to let us slip back on that into old habits or have it be a lecture driven setup. I mean, there's no reason to do that, and and the technology and the fluency with it It's very simple for everyone to do, and is going to be, that piece of it is going to be continuing. And I think if we look forward a couple of years, I think even the collaboration software, will continue to crowd into some of the things that, in the near term, people are hungering to getting back together. But I think some of the tools that we'll have, will continue to erode at that.
What are you piloting at the Holmes Center and at the Carlson School in terms of different models in your courses to determine what's the right makeup between synchronous and asynchronous learning? What are you piloting for how people are using technology? What technologies are available to make the job of the professor easier in terms of how you deliver content?
Yeah, I mean, we were just in a class last night, that was a hybrid setup, in a newly built out room that, we've got dozens of rooms in the main business school building at the Carlson School that, they're slapping, 75-inch screens all around and, whiteboards that you can use. And it's almost too much technology. But, I think Zoom is so easily integrated into that you can have remote people participating in it. I think, it is tricky to be able to plan for. And, I think if you know to some extent, where people are going to be, you can structure things around it. So I think there'll be some adjusting there in terms of how many people are with you live, and versus just being synchronous and online. So I think there'll be some bumps in that and with some of the technology. But I think, those are the things that I think within the next year or two, will be worked through. But I know we're investing, in a lot of technology and in a lot of tech support. And, we had, way too many people, helping us last night, with something that the technology, frankly, isn't that hard. It's more, learning how to have, this, 3 or 4 different modes of participation and how to blend that into the exercise and the structure of the delivery of the curriculum.
Is it just going to be, behavior change that we will all get used to these new technologies?
I think that, that's a large part of it. And, and certainly, Zoom, we've all gotten quite comfortable with and capable of doing, all sorts of things. And I think that can be, folded into the room, and I think, as we go through it and, deliver a couple, just a single semester of a class, I think we'll be in a much better, position even by the spring in terms of, how much flexibility we can offer and how much of the hybrid model, where it works and where it is kind of strained.
Although you're housed in the Carlson School of Business, you draw students from the different colleges across the university. Have you noticed that the percentage of student entrepreneurs has grown or remained the same? And how does the Holmes Center, proactively motivate students versus just responding to their requests for, entrepreneurship resources?
Yeah, we're seeing the highest growth in entrepreneurship across campus. And we've invested most of our resources into, supporting students, in more in the science and technology areas, as we've been involved for, a little over 8 years in the National Science Foundation programs. We've opened up a new innovation hub on the east bank of the Mississippi River, which is kind of the old line university. The business school's on the west bank and completely separated from science and engineering in the med school, and purposefully reaching out to those groups as a way to engage them and really, establish a home and an easy way for them to get connected with the resources. So, we've physically moved a lot of the activities and events to make it easier to connect with students across campus. That's where the growth is. And I think that's, that's where the ideas are. And that's where we see the opportunity going forward.
Steve Blank has referred to competitions as entrepreneurship theater. Okay. Somewhat controversial, of course, but your Minnesota Cup has become the largest statewide startup competition in the entire country. Okay. What you say is, we're here to help people with big ideas. We want those ideas to become viable startups and for those startups to change our state. Why do you think, or why has the Minnesota Cup program been so successful for so long?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with the, criticism when competitions, become a beauty contest and I think distract entrepreneurs from building a business. And what we've always really tried to maintain with the Minnesota Cup, in what's now our 17th year, is to coach them through the process and have them doing the things they need to do to build their business and not having, a lot of extraneous activity. So, and we were really, to some extent, a pre-accelerator before, all the other thousands of accelerators existed. And, we've tried not to follow that or compete with that activity. And as opposed to that, we really try and, be the first step in launching a business in Minnesota, for, any business from no tech to high tech, and help them connect with the resources. And, dozens of them every year go on to, other accelerator programs and advance through that, or they get connected with, mentors, investors, advisors, and the like. So I think appreciating the role that we play and making it, highly useful and practical in terms of what they're expected to do, and not have it turn into a beauty contest that's distracting them.
One of the things that you and I talked about actually the last time we spoke was the whole question and concept of, what do I do next? So, if I'm a startup and I complete one of your programs, my question is, what do I do next? How do you handle those questions from, for example, Min Cup participants?
Yeah. And I remember, even in one of the first years, one of the winners, their immediate response was, well, I won the Min Cup. I thought we were on our way and this was going to be, all downhill from here. That's, first off, setting the expectation and coaching them in terms of the process where they're at. But, we see Minnesota Cup really is, starting to get them connected with the resources that can help them move forward with their idea. And it's early in the process. And, that's I think the beauty of, being at a university that's in the middle of a vibrant entrepreneurial ecosystem is that they can get connected to a lot of the other resources. And what we saw, when we started this back in 2005, were a lot of lonely entrepreneurs that, weren't sure if they had a good idea or not, but, clearly were not connected with the resources and didn't know the initial steps to take to move forward with their idea.
How does teaching social entrepreneurship, that is market-driven approaches that benefit society, serving the common good, how does that differ from teaching commercial entrepreneurship? Is it a definitional and not a practical difference only?
Yeah, in my opinion, I've always, considered it to be 90% the same. It's, it's creative problem solving. It's how do you create value? And, I think the differences, once you get down to, how do you capture that value and how do you fund the venture, requires some creativity. And I think, a little bit different expertise in coaching in terms of, structural opportunities or funding opportunities. But, in a lot of ways, it's really, that much more challenging. I think there's another another dimension that you can bring into this that's creative and that, avoids the situation. I think if you look back, over the last 10 years, there's been a lot of advances of, getting away from, it's a social venture, therefore we're going out with our hands out and, being dependent upon donations, as opposed to being, very, very creative in terms of being able to develop at least a portion of the revenue or fully fund the venture through other sources.
What are the generational changes that you have seen that have most influenced how you deliver your entrepreneurship programs?
Yeah, I think if we look back over that time, certainly, trying to understand different ways to engage, a more diverse set of students. And I think, certainly, a large play in terms of, getting more women involved. And I think there were, a lot of advances, and certainly now in terms of, finding, ways in which to engage and, connect, whether it's, minority driven entrepreneurs or different groups. So, I think our programs have developed in a lot of ways, and trying to, create on-ramps and create different types of programs to get them started. I think, generationally, if I look at, the Gen Zs in terms of, coming in, to some extent, it's really strengthened my desire to, challenge some of the students and, let them, in some of the experiential classes, particularly that I teach, letting them fail without getting a medal as they go in. And I think there's even more value in that than 15 years ago, where students, when we started some of these classes, would be, more committed coming in, or more willing to persevere. So I think some of the lessons that the current generation of students take away from some of the, the really difficult challenges of, going through not a month-long project, or not a 3-month-long project, but really trying to build a business over a whole school year, I think are immensely valuable, for some of the students coming through that, haven't, that have had their hands held in a lot of situations, throughout their career, and letting them fail before they go into their first career position can be immensely valuable for them.
I think what you're referring to is the course, which is called Startup Customer Development and Testing. That's your year-long course. That's the course in which students test business model assumptions and receive recurring feedback from instructors and mentors. What did it take to get this course into the curriculum? What did it take?
Yeah, so the startup class we developed, a little over 10 years ago. This is just a 1-semester course that, is really a fairly traditional, lean startup course. Mm-hmm. And, we had developed it back in 2010, as we looked, and there were a handful of us, that were the practitioners amongst the entrepreneurship faculty that were each doing independent studies with 1 or 2 students each semester, that had taken the other classes, and they wanted to push it forward. And there really wasn't a great mechanism for them to do that. Yeah. So, we kind of came together and said, hey, these are each unique ideas at a little bit different of a stage, but it's the same process. Let's put them together, create an independent study. I got some external funding from a benefactor and was able to pay one of our instructors to kind of lead this. And we started off with 5 students around a table, that were each trying to launch their own venture, and, coaching them through kind of the lean startup customer development process. We saw them advance. We saw them, a subset of them clearly rising to the occasion and making progress and being committed to it. So we were able to provide them with additional funding. And, we grew that group from, initial 5 to 8 to 10 to 15. And now we have, 20 to 30 concepts each semester in that class. And that kind of became the foundation for, what's now a lot of our NSF activity with the I-Corps program.
How
And,
beneficial?
and we were able to, do that, with the support, that we had from the, from within our department, and as a result of, being structured within the strategic management and entrepreneurship department.
How beneficial is it for an entrepreneurship center to develop signature courses like your Entrepreneurship in Action course and the Carlson Venture Enterprise?
Again, I think for the students that, really want to push forward while they're in school, it provides, opportunities for them, to connect with the community that, are really, hard to imagine in a traditional course. And to see, the self-confidence they come out of a class like that with, after having been through, like with the Entrepreneurship in Action class, a full year of building a business and, seeing it fall on its face several times and finding ways to pick themselves up and persevere. It adds incredible value. It gives us, some powerful stories to share with our alumni, with benefactors. It draws students to the University of Minnesota, specifically because they want to participate in some of these classes.
You touched on this earlier, but with all of your available resources, why have you chosen not to develop an InCenter Accelerator program like a lot of entrepreneurship centers do?
Yeah, I mean, we've certainly evaluated it a number of times, and but we try and focus our efforts on where we have the best advantage to make an impact. And there are thousands of accelerators, hundreds of quality ones, and in Minnesota, we're quite fortunate to have a number of high quality ones that are available for our students and alumni. And we don't see that as something strategic that we have to do for them. We have, particularly, after they graduate, there are, and for a number of students, even while they're in school, they can get involved with these accelerator programs. So we emphasize much more, while they're in school. I think we've got a number of, unique courses and experiential opportunities for them, but we want to connect our students with the community, and we don't want to, keep them as part of the university, particularly after they've graduated. The sooner we can build those connections, the better. We've already got, with the Minnesota Cup, kind of a pre-accelerator program that they can go through, but I think, consistent with that, the sooner we can get them connected with the resources to keep building their businesses, the better. And, we don't see ourselves being that uniquely positioned to do it better than a lot of the accelerators that are there and freely available for our students.
Atland Ventures is the student-run venture capital firm managed by students of the University of Minnesota, Twin Cities. The organization counts on the support of Twin Cities' most experienced venture capitalists, and also counts on the thought leadership of University of Minnesota professors. Would you recommend a student-run venture capital program for other university entrepreneurship centers? And if so, what are the factors that a center director should consider when choosing to develop such a program?
Yeah, we had looked at this a number of times as well, and certainly, Michigan and several of the other programs, had gotten press, and we'd had discussions, and I was initially not very supportive of doing something like this, or having the school, start up its own fund. We had in my view, something like this takes a heroically dedicated group of students really pull it off or to do it in the way that we structured it. And, we've been able to, so we had a group initially that, short of, one initial benefactor who helped us get it off the ground, these students raised their own fund. And they did, hundreds of meetings and, got 17 LPs invested and, raised over $1 million and have set up the structure. So, our role has been, more to facilitate, connections with legal and accounting and with the venture firms and alumni, and then to structure some curriculum around that. So in the end, I think it's been successful, but it's not something I would necessarily recommend for a center director to dedicate a lot of time to do. I think, with a number of the programs that we have in place, and, I frustrate my team at times, but I think you really need to be opportunistic and, and be disciplined about, when you try and create kind of a greenfield type program like this. I think you could spend a lot of time and effort. I think, we were able to, we evaluated it. We're not going to do it ourselves, but as we had a group of students and as we had a benefactor to help get it started, that we were able to bring together, that we could support it, we decided to move forward with it. But I think, too often, I think I see programs like this that, you can spend a lot of time trying to build it. And I wouldn't recommend it for everybody.
Mm-hmm. You teach 5 entrepreneurship courses at the Carlson School. How important is it for an entrepreneurship center director to also be an educator?
Yeah, I mean, I'm involved in a number of classes. I lead 2 of them. I think it's hard to do if you're not directly connected with the students, and to be able to, virtually every day of the week, be able to have the pulse of the students or to be interacting and to see how they're learning and how they're changing over time, I think is incredibly valuable. And everyone on our staff that's involved in, kind of education on campus, we want to have teaching at least one class and being connected with the students directly. And I think that is, separating yourself from that, I think, is a dangerous trap. And I think anytime we've wandered away from, what we believe is best for the students, I think we've struggled.
How do your undergraduate entrepreneurship curriculum differ from your graduate and MBA programs?
I think the biggest difference is at the graduate level, students have a context for business and some of the constraints. So there's a lot more emphasis in terms of corporate entrepreneurship and innovation in classes that, I think don't have as much value for some of the undergrads. Also at the graduate level, we do a lot trying to connect students with, technology at the university, or, if they've got, particularly when they have a STEM background, where they can apply that to, something more complex, and there are better opportunities for that at the graduate level. The undergrads at the graduate level, it's more of an a la carte type program. It's not necessarily major, things like that. The undergrad, there are a number of paths that they can take. And, the students there are really finding themselves. And, while we have majors, I probably talk as many students out of an entrepreneurship major as I talk into it. I think it's important for them to try something, but, I think taking a couple of classes in entrepreneurship as well as other areas across campus are a great way, for them to start finding themselves as undergrads.
As the managing director of the center, how do you coordinate with the academic director of the Holmes Center? And What advice would you give to promote harmony between the center director and an academic director?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you really need to earn the right and, treat the faculty with the right level of respect. And I think, I've been through enough, leaders within our department and within our school to where, I think they, to some extent, feel threatened by practitioners coming in, that are able to work with students and find practical solutions and do things that, they're not necessarily capable of doing. But I think respecting, the role of the academics and and again, doing it in a way that's, respectful for their authority, doing it in a way that's, respectful for the value that they provide in the other classes. And, us, our center being a part of the department, the strategic management entrepreneurship department, is tremendously valuable for us in being able to not just have a sidecar series of programs that aren't connected to the curriculum, but to be directly involved and to be able to trial classes like the startup class, or classes like the Entrepreneurship in Action, or with the venture fund, to be able to develop something for that and to do it quickly and to be able to control that. But we do it with their input, and we don't come in as the arrogant practitioner that thinks they know it all. But and it takes a while to be able to do that, and it isn't always a smooth road. But I think we've got a great relationship, and I think as you build some success in terms of the center and the impact over time, that you earn that right and you earn that respect, that mutual respect.
The when you had talked about, John, you talked about teaching courses and being close to the students, but how closely do you listen to the voice of the customer, your students, when developing the curriculum and co-curricular, programs? And, using Henry Ford's old saws that, if I listened to all of my customers and what they wanted, they would, they wanted a faster horse. And so, how do you balance listening to the students versus, deciding, against what might be whimsical or, just temporary?
Yeah, I mean, I may be dangerously far on the spectrum of considering the students to be customers. But as we launched a new innovation hub last year on the East Bank, to be closer again to the science and engineering and medical students. We thought we had a general idea. We wanted to do that. We thought we didn't want to do it on the West Bank, but we had a semester-long project with a group of students from the MBA and undergrad programs that really led both looking at what other universities had done, but also surveying a lot of students in terms of where they wanted it and what practical things they needed other than couches and ping pong tables and things that were really practical and meaningful. And it was tremendously valuable for us. So quite often we'll structure through one of our MBA courses a way to get input from the users, or as we named the innovation hub, or as we went through all the design work, we had students from the College of Design and coming up with the visuals and space, and had a number of different events where we had current and former students into the space helping us design the look and feel. So if we're not drinking our own Kool-Aid at that point, I think we're missing an opportunity. So we spend a lot of time trying to listen to the students in terms of what they do, and along the priority areas where we're trying to grow.
There are a number of established entrepreneurship and innovation tools, and there are new ones that are evolving. I'm talking about methodologies like Lean Startup, Business Model Canvas, Design Thinking, Jobs to be Done framework, Voice of the Customer, et cetera, et cetera. How do you weave, or how do you decide, how to incorporate these into your curriculum?
I think the easiest way is to hire curious instructors. And, those people, will be, on the current edge in terms of reading this, or in terms of using these tools in businesses. And, I think we try and, structure, and, my involvement tends to be more, as adjuncts come in from industry and are teaching, that, sharing some of that information with them, pairing them up with somebody who's taught the course before, structuring ways to collaborate. But, a lot of these, tools that came out maybe, 10 years ago or so, it was quite easy, to share those amongst the people, the individuals teaching. And I think there was broad support, not only from, adjuncts coming in looking for materials, but from the research faculty, that embraced a lot of this. And to some extent, people who've been in industry, design thinking and things like that, oftentimes, are just new labels on a lot of, existing tools that have been around for quite a while. So, hiring, people that are curious, but people who also have, experience applying, these principles and a lot of the foundations they were built upon, in prior careers in industry.
There are as many approaches to mentoring for entrepreneurs as there are types of entrepreneurship programs. What is the Holmes Center model for mentoring?
The vast majority of our mentoring is, specifically within programs. We have undergraduate school-wide programs, that will work with students, typically, sophomore and junior students with an interest in entrepreneurship. And it's more general mentorship about, career planning and things like more broadly, but our emphasis really, goes within specific classes, specific, programs like the Minnesota Cup or the startup class, and, providing, specific opportunities for students to be, connected with resources that can really help them at the stage they're at, and, help, oftentimes advise them in areas, where they just don't have the background or the context.
So many of the first-time entrepreneurs across the country have never had the benefit of a formal entrepreneurship education, like at the Carlson School, for example. What would you recommend to America's 1,000 plus small business development centers for coaching and guiding Main Street small business owners?
Yeah, I mean, with a lot of the Main Street or, lifestyle business owners, it's a little bit, in my view, a little bit distinct from entrepreneurship.
Mhm.
And, we have courses, the one I was, referring to that we kicked off last night for, minority owned businesses. And, it's much more of a general management approach, and, it's marketing and team building.
Mhm.
So, I think, there may be a lot of pressure on the SBDCs to, adopt, a lot of the, entrepreneurship curriculum. I think that applies well, in situations where there are a lot of unknowns, and in terms of testing and moving forward. I think for a lot of the, Main Street businesses, it's, a little more straightforward in that. And certainly you need to, iterate and move forward. But as we offer programs in those areas, it's much more of a, a marketing and strategy focus than it is necessarily, an entrepreneurship where you're trying to, come up with, something that you just don't know if there's a demand for.
How do you encourage participation among first-generation college students, domestic underrepresented students, international students, commuter students, graduate students, off-campus students, as well as economically challenged students?
Yeah, so we've done, a number of, youth summer camps for, students of color. We've, in the Minnesota Cup, more broadly, partnering with Junior Achievement, just in terms of some of the youth divisions and doing some of the promotion, within the city of Minneapolis. Some of the, the Minnesota Cup, clearly, we're proud of our record of having, women participation usually is in the mid 40 percentiles. Minority participation is mid to upper 20 percentile. And, that comes with a lot of outreach toward targeted groups and partnerships with organizations around the community. So we do quite a bit of that. In terms of the students, specifically some of the internship programs we have about 60 students working with startups every year, making sure that, a lot of those businesses are run by women or run by entrepreneurs of color. I think makes it easier for the students to be involved in those. We've also got fellowship programs at the graduate level that have developed programs and actually ventures specifically around first generation college student success and around, getting more connections between MBA programs and some of the community colleges and things like that to improve the representation in the MBA programs.
Outside of the typical Princeton review numbers that universities typically report, what are the performance metrics that you apply to the Holmes Center programs?
I think we try and look at each, program specifically and, look at, growth numbers and do, quality assessments from the participants and get, specific feedback. We don't necessarily pay a lot of attention or, fill out a lot of, I don't even think we did the Princeton review last year during the pandemic. So the ranking piece of it, hasn't necessarily been a priority. Certainly the external support that we get and the endowment that we've built. I mean, the university just completed a campaign that, we've raised over $20 million, for the Holmes Center, and virtually all that has gone into endowments. So I think, the metric, one of the metrics for me, is making sure that the funding that we've put in place and the resources that we have are here for the long term, and we're not funding kind of short-term programs with current dollars, that we're really, building something that's, going to last and is going to be across the university and across the state.
John, can you share any decisions that you have made as a managing director that you would advise others to avoid?
I mentioned a little bit earlier of, wandering too far away from students. Mm-hmm. And I think we have an external advisory board that meets twice a year. And I've got, a couple of faculty members, in the strategy area who would, check us and ask, push us for, do we really need to fill that role in the community? We had an opportunity probably 5 years ago to kind of take over an existing organization that, ran kind of the monthly, community entrepreneurship forum and, speakers, and helped organize the venture capital conference each year. And, we could have been, sucked into becoming an event company. Mm-hmm. And, I think as we dug into that and really pressed on that, I think it would have been a mistake to have taken resources away from us, away from the students. So while we run the Minnesota Cup, that's open to any entrepreneur in the state, and while we run a statewide entrepreneurship education program that is, funded through the state and free to anybody to participate in, we really try and only extend kind of existing resources that we have that we're uniquely positioned to do. And I think trying to do, at least where we're situated, too many things in the community, and to some extent that continues with the accelerators. If somebody else can do it well, we don't necessarily have to do it. So trying to draw the line earlier on, being pulled into too many things that are external.
For universities and directors that are just starting their entrepreneurship centers and programs, what are the curricular and co-curricular programs that they should start with as a foundation for their center?
At a high level, I guess I look at what we do, the highest level of just, bringing the business community into the educational experience. So I guess starting off with some of the, mentoring programs or internships that make those connections with the students, certainly, engaging, and it's easy to do the, various levels of speaker series, or even getting students to run, those type of things, particularly if you're in, used to be, if you were in a metro area where it's very easy to get, someone to pop over any time of day, now virtually being able to do those speakers. So, creating more connections with the community, in terms of awareness for the students, I think you have to structure, some type of events or on-ramps for the students, whether that's, simple competitions, whether that's challenges, or, ways in which for students to kind of collide and meet other students that they're interested in. So I think there's, a lot of foundational programming activity that you can do. The curriculum, I'm not sure there's necessarily one answer for that. And I think you have to do an assessment in terms of what are the, strengths of your university, and, are you a research-based university that has a lot of science and technology, which might steer you down one direction, or, are you more, if you're more of a community organization, or, more connected in some of the social areas, might steer you down another direction.
Last question, John. Over the next few years, how do you see entrepreneurship evolving at the Holmes Center? Is it steady state, or, what do you see if you put on your vision glasses? What are you seeing?
Yeah, I mean, we're very excited about cross-campus activity, and I think we've laid out a vision for being, the university-wide entrepreneurship center, not being just a part of the business school. And I think we've gotten, great support from our dean in terms of, providing those resources to all students. And by, partnering with the libraries to open up an innovation hub, we've invested in a resource that's open to all students. And I think, through the NSF program, we've got great partnerships with the science and engineering and with the tech transfer office. So I really see that coming together, and us being, a much bigger force of activity across campus. And, we opened the Innovation Hub 3 weeks before COVID shut everything down. So we're eager to, roll out. We've just finished rolling out and kind of resetting up with all the chairs after the capacity was reduced last year. But, we're going to relaunch that in September, and what's really going to be, a 2-for-1, double orientation year for, the new freshmen and really the new sophomores who didn't get a chance to experience the university. So, we're excited. It's going to be, what we hope to be a great year on campus, for the undergrads, continuing to, learn. And, that's the fun. And, if you were in the entrepreneurship area and didn't like the change, I think you're in the wrong space. So the variety of challenges that we have this year, and I think the excitement students will have coming back, we're really excited across campus.
John, thank you so very much. Tremendous insights. Thank you very much.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks, Philip.
All right.